right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to It's Not Just Magic. We've got Heather Abbott with us this morning. And you know what? It's kind of been a morning, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm late. I'm sorry.
No worries. You know what? I feel like with all entrepreneurs, sometimes we just have those moments, like where things happen, things don't go the way that we expect. And what can we do? What's the best thing to do in a situation like that?
Assume that it all happened for a reason and keep going.
Exactly. So let's just take a beat and just take a breath and just, all right. So, Heather, share with us a little bit about your past. Like, tell us a little about you. Tell us about what you do. We kind of want to just kind of know a little bit about your journey.
Who I am, huh? Why the heck am
Yeah.
I here? Well, oh my gosh, where to start? I'm kind of a wacky girl. I'm an incarnated fairy. I'm an accountant, a financial advisor, and I am figuring stuff out as I go. And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and my passion is speaking and helping other people. And my mission is to help all those heart-centered entrepreneurs and all the heart-centered people to take their place amongst the wealthy, so we can up-level the world.
I love that. How did you know that this was your passion?
I've always loved helping people. As far back as I can remember, I was tutoring, not for money, and coaching. And when I was an accountant, and especially when I was a financial advisor, I could care less about the investments or the selling part of it. I just wanted to teach them so they understood what was going on. And they did. Like, I had so many comments from so many people. Like, I ran into one of my old clients the other day, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. Every time you came over, I always felt so good." And I mean, that's what I did. I made sure that they understood their finances. I educated them and gave them tactics that nobody else ever had, and I made them feel good about it. It's just my nature. It's who I am, and I couldn't avoid it, right?
That's awesome. I do love that because it's so important. I feel like to try to help people understand the ropes, and try to teach people, and because I feel like a lot of people kind of step into this world, especially the world of entrepreneurship, and they're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. A lot of the times they're very gifted in I know when I stepped out into entrepreneurship, I was very gifted in the areas that I knew how to do. But then when I had to turn that around to oh, now I'm running my own finances, and I'm running this part of the business, and I'm also there are just so many different aspects to your business that you're like, what do I, and how do I even begin to learn that part? And I think that I do feel like what you have to teach is so valuable to people, especially letting people understand their financing, because once you become a business owner, that whole world changes. Your financial world changes a little bit.
Well, there's two main things to remember. One is always take inspired action. If it doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel right, you're pushing against the current, stop, reevaluate. Ask yourself some serious questions about why it's so hard. What do you really want to be doing? And give yourself a quiet time to answer that. But one of the most important things that I really want every entrepreneur to listen carefully for, okay, really listen. You can hire a bookkeeper and an accountant and a financial advisor to do the stuff you're not good at, but you still have to look at it, okay? And I'm serious here. You don't have to figure out the statements. You don't have to take a course so that you know how to read a balance sheet or an income statement, or some of you don't even know what those are. But what you need is a quality bookkeeper who can explain the important bits to you. And you have to look at it at least monthly. Like, this is critical, people. There's a reason that you will hear about football players being nearly destitute 7 years after they leave the NFL or CFL, right? You can tell I'm Canadian. Woohoo, CFL. Yeah, it's a Canadian football league, for those of you who don't know. But you have to know your numbers. I was talking to a woman who said, yeah, I had a 6-figure business. I went bankrupt. How does that happen? There are people who think they're making a profit selling physical items, for example, and thinking, oh, I'm making a good profit. They only cost me $2 and I'm selling them for $5. And they're forgetting every single bit of overhead cost. Overhead costs are the costs that you already paid that aren't directly related to a product, but they count. For online places like you and I, we have coaches. We have like CRMs and Zoom that we pay for and all these other things. Those take from the profits. And the only way you're going to see if you're profitable is by looking at those statements that your bookkeeper understands. And if they don't, holy God, get another bookkeeper, right?
Right. Well, and I feel like that is such an important part of that, is that you have to actually keep looking at it. And it's so important to know your numbers. And that was a concept I didn't really grasp until probably this last, I was in a couple of coaching programs last year, and they really made us sit down and look at the numbers. And I'm like, I don't like doing that because I want to go focus on this, that, and get things out there. But then when they made me actually sit down and focus on the numbers and really hone in my focus and really decide, okay, here's my market, here's who I'm talking to, here's how I'm going to be like promoting myself, and here's who my ideal client is, and this is essentially how much it cost me to get a client through the door. Now I know, and I've done all my research on what to charge for my services. Now I go into sales conversations and I don't feel like I ever really have to sell people because I'm confident in what I'm doing.
Exactly. And I don't want you to think that this is going to be like, oh, I have to know numbers and this is going to be torture. No, sweetie. This is a once a month, half-hour conversation with a bookkeeper who is just going to explain it to you. And that's only the first time. After that, it could be like a 5-minute conversation. But it is critical to have and to know. And if you're that number phobic that you don't want to know whether you're making a profit or not, because that's essentially all I'm talking about, then you should not be an entrepreneur. No. You have to be able to look at your numbers, unless you have somebody who you absolutely trust, who has your best interests at heart. No, not somebody you hire. Unless you have somebody like that, and then you still have to know, because if something happens to them, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I knew a friend of my daughter's in high school.
Yeah.
I was always at the high school volunteering stuff all the time. And she was talking to me. She wanted to become a doctor. And she's like, I'm trying to decide between this course and this course. And I was like, take the bookkeeping course. She's like, why? I said, because you want to be a doctor. You're not going to do your own books ever, but you're going to need to know what that accountant is doing, and it will serve you later. And she did. And it's just basics that you do need to know some.
Right. And I'm glad that you also mentioned that too, because I feel like I've worked with a bunch of small businesses before I started. And one of the things that I saw happen over and over and over again is they would take a job, give it to somebody, what it was that they were doing, what that person was in charge of, and then all of a sudden they're like, that person leaves or quits or moves on or has another opportunity that comes in for them, and that's wonderful for them, but then the business is sitting there scrambling trying to figure out what was it that they were actually doing.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing that I don't usually do, but it's setting up your processes, and it's easier to do it when you have someone there who's fully functioning. Get them to track everything they do during the day.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to write it down. It's not a hard task, but if they write down their, okay, first I did this, then I did this, it's going to annoy them for a few days. But once you have like, okay, if there's something, now that you've done the basics, is there something different you do like at the end of the month or something? And get those processes written down, because those are, number one, they're great for training somebody else. You're going to need them if you hire somebody else, because they're going to want to know what their duties are. So yeah, it's part of running a business. And unfortunately, a lot of people who start running a business, they don't want a business. They want to do the part that they're passionate about, and what they're creating is a practice that's all based around them. And it's not something that they can offload to anybody else. So they're trading time for money, and they will be forever because they haven't set it up as a business.
Absolutely. And it's so funny too, because every once in a while, like I actually just met some people in the last few weeks, and I'm sitting there, and at first what they're, my brain just kind of goes, oh, okay, that sounds like fun. Sure. And then when I sit down and I actually think about the processes that they're using, and I'm like, this is really time consuming. And I'm like, I don't have time. Like, I could in my brain, I'm already going, I can simplify this process for you. Like, if you want this to be something because you have it there and you enjoy it, then let's find a way to schedule that in so that you do it in like an hour, and then you have the rest of the week to go like make money.
You do have to figure that out. Like, you have tracking your time. It's not just something to make employees do. You need to do it. Sim Sahukan, a friend of mine, he teaches this. He's like, write down every task that you do during the day. Track it. Whenever you switch to something new, just write down the time and write what it was, so that you know what you're doing. And if you actually go and check and you see how many hours are actually going in to making the money, you might only be making $2 an hour. Like, you don't know until you do the numbers. I know a lot of, as a financial advisor, right? You would make money on commissions. So if you sold insurance or somebody transferred their stuff to you, and people would be like, oh yeah, I did the appointment, took the insurance application, I made $500 in an hour. It's like, really? So you didn't do any prospecting. You didn't make any calls. You didn't have to go home and do paperwork. There's no follow-up. No, it didn't take you an hour. And actually, it works reverse too, because people who are hiring you to do something, and they're like, oh my God, you're like $500-700 an hour, right? Or $1,000 an hour. How can that be? It's like, okay, yeah, but it's not just the time I spend face to face with you. It's all the other stuff I have to do. Or
it's or sorry, I cut you off.
Well, it's that example where like, it could be a doctor giving you a shot and he charges you $200 for the like 5-second shot, and you're like, well, why is that $200? He's like, well, it's $2 for the medicine, and it's $98 for me to know where to put it.
Right. And there's actually right now, I love it because there's a TikTok video that's going around where it's like it's one of those videos that's gone viral, and basically like the audio is explaining how like Pablo Picasso was sitting in a restaurant and some woman recognized him and came over and was like, can you do this like sketch for me? And he's like, sure, I can do that. So he takes like a couple minutes to like do a little sketch on a napkin. And when he hands it back to her, he also asks for for a pretty good price tag in return. And she's like, but you want that much money for something that took you 5 minutes? And he goes, no, it didn't take me 5 minutes. It was $40. Like, it's 40 years of experience knowing how to do that. And like, because if it was just the issue of the napkin, the pen, and it, like if it was just having the napkin and the pen, then it's something that you would have been able to do in those 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And
if we have innate talents, we get paid for it,
yeah,
and the training.
Exactly. So tell me one thing, one story that just had like what was like a really wow moment for you? What's like one thing that really impacted you?
Wow, good or wow, bad?
You know what? We got time. You can do one of each.
Well, one of the most profound things that's happened to me over the last long while is actually what I talk about in my initial episode on my podcast, right? Prosperity and Possibility. This is my story on, sorry, battery going dead on the computer. And that is leaving the abusive relationship I was in and realizing that I was abused, because domestic violence awareness, a lot of the time it's the abused that does not know she knows, but she's in denial about being mentally abused. And when I left, a week later, he shot himself in front of me. And as I was running away, I looked back to see if he faked it, because that seemed like something he would do. Like, to me, it was okay. It was a shitty freaking day. Yes, I was bawling my eyes out for a while, but I looked at the paramedics and I was like, are you guys going to get counseling for what you saw? Because I was worried about them. I thought I was fine, because it's another day, right? It's another act of abuse. He was dead, thank God. But I was still in denial. I had been mentally abused. So that was huge. Mm-hmm. And I actually, my children and I call it Freedom Day. They dubbed it Freedom Day. Yeah, it was June 20th, 2015. Oh, wow. Yeah. So we're all very happy about that, because we can live our lives, right? So that was profound. On the good side, I'm getting married this summer. I have the most wonderful man in my life who supports me no matter what I decide I want to do. And having met so many people online, especially online, because I'm in a very small town in Nova Scotia, right? There's like 3,000 people in this town and like 17,000 in the county. So it's small. So being able to interact with everybody online. So for me, the COVID story is a good story because everybody moved online and I got to meet them without having to try to go and find them.
Well, and to attest to that, like there's a networking group that you and I both belong to, and that's where we met. And I don't know that group existed before COVID, but I know I did not find out about it until COVID. So yeah,
it's hosted in Australia, right? Like it's there's people from all over the world in it.
Go global, right?
Yeah, and I love it. It's like, oh no, I have a call with somebody in Germany this morning, and I'm going to be talking to someone in Scotland tonight, and I got interviewed by a lady in Italy, and just it's all this. Like, I put on a course, and there was one person from Nova Scotia, and everybody else was all over. It was awesome. I love it. So to me, actually, COVID is my good story. But you heard the bad one, right? So
right. Well, I mean, and yeah, I mean, yes, we know that there was a lot of negative that came along with the pandemic, but like there are also a lot of positive things. And I think that I think what's been so cool is that I've been on the for the most part, I've been on the positive side of things where my business, I had my business expand. I got to meet people from all around the world. I kind of feel like I got to go it's like I lived and I worked on cruise ships for 5 years, so it's kind of nice that I can do some of that international mingling without ever having to leave my pets and my home and my and my coffee.
It is. And I mean, I'm sure you agree that the world is becoming a better place. But in
Yes.
order for it to become that, we're all here as creators. And we have to experience things we don't like in order to create the opposite of the things that we like. And some people are like, "Oh no, things are terrible. They're just getting worse." No, they're not. If you do you remember Spanish Inquisition in history? Like, did you watch Game of Thrones? Because that's what the world was actually like. And it's just we've come so far. I mean, you and I, we get to vote. We were we were owned before, right? Not us personally, but maybe in a past life. And if somebody thought you were magical in the slightest, well, hello, witch, witch, witch. You know, like it's so I totally believe, and I was talking to someone the other day, and she's like, "Yeah, but the government is like trying to oppress us, and they're taking away the rights." And I'm like, "Yeah, but what's going to happen is the boomerang. They're going to push, and it's just going to go the other way because you can. It's just like the elastic band, right? Like they say, give your boyfriend space because he needs it, and if you pull away, then he'll come towards you, right? But if you're creating too much slack in that elastic band, he's going to get annoyed. He needs space too. Well, that's like with everybody. I'm just using the guys, but it's the same thing, right? Like you can't. We're in a new age. This is not the age of conformity, and anyone who's pushing that, they can push it, but it's going to bounce back.
Yeah, I like that. Because, yeah, I don't think, like, yeah, I just feel like world has expanded and it's been fun. And it's actually really funny. I met one of the girls that actually, like, she was able to come to my Christmas party because she lives she lives like 30-40 minutes away. And but I met her in an international networking event.
Yeah. Well, there's like Ontario, the province. People are just moving to Nova Scotia like all through COVID. Like we didn't have a lot of cases and stuff. And there's been a lot of people moving from cities, right? And in the town where I grew up, Smiths Cove, I met a lady from Ontario, and she was telling me how one of the neighbors down the road, like 5 houses away, lived like 3 blocks from her in the town she used to be in Ontario. They never met each other, never knew each other, but now they've moved to Smiths Cove. They're like, "Oh, cool." So it's like
I found a buddy.
yeah.
So, okay, so what advice would you I know you kind of mentioned at the beginning of like really making sure that you take a look at your books and understand what's going on there. Is there another piece of like advice that you would want to share with somebody who's wanting to start and really develop their business?
Oh God, so many. Don't try and do it alone. That actually probably is one of the critical things. And that comes from me having done a lot of things my whole life, trying to figure it out on my own, even to the point where you could just ask. Like my mom was driving and I noticed that the blinker would go off when she turned the wheel. And I couldn't tell if she was flicking it or if it was going off. Like, was she turning it off or does it go off on its own? I didn't ask. I watched and watched and watched so I could figure it out. Like, don't do that. I could have had the answer in 2 seconds.
Right? Like, and I love that too, because I'm like, there's a group that I'm actually a part of. It's called Mean Clive, and it's like an online co-working space. And so we have it's all of us entrepreneurs like hanging out in the space. And when we have questions or need to like bounce something off of someone, like we have different breakout rooms that we can actually hop into where we can go in and be like, okay, and then you have like immediate help and assistance to like work out a problem, and you can work it out right then and there versus sitting there for hours trying to, and sometimes the issue is just simply we're making it too complicated and we're in our own way. And we need somebody to be like, I was working on a project yesterday and I was in my head about it and I had gotten into this mental block around it. And one of the women in the group was like, okay, 5-second pep talk, like get out of your own head. Like go remember you for 5 seconds. Now go at it. And then, I sat down again and I had the project complete in like 30 minutes. But I sat there for hours trying to make it something so much more than what it was.
Well, it's like when you play that game, when you hold the thing on your forehead and some people give you clues, you can't see it, but somebody else knows exactly what it is.
Exactly.
There is a good tip for getting out of your head. This has nothing to do with numbers. This is, I'm not just numbers. Everywhere. When you find that you're just getting overwhelmed or you're just too much in your head, sit down and notice your surroundings. Actually take notes. So look and say, oh, there's a pink vase, and okay, I got my Disney castle. That's nice. And like take yourself out of all the stuff you're creating in your mind, because you create this whole other world in your mind, and bring yourself back to reality. Like, what is actually going on in your life right now? Are you safe? Are you somewhere where you have shelter and food and your needs are met? Like, are you okay? Just get out of it. Like, just noticing your surroundings will help to bring you out of your head. That's just a little.
Yes. I like that a lot, because I will find that I will find sometimes that like I will get in my head, and a lot of the times it is really hard to pull myself back down. But it's like taking a couple deep breaths, monitoring, like, and just kind of centering your thoughts, centering your ideas, like just kind of, I guess, being human for a few minutes.
Well, it's actually, it could be argued that you're getting out of being human and connecting to who you truly are. Belly breathing has so many benefits. Like if you actually expand your belly on your in-breath and push it in as far as toward your spine as you can on your out-breath and breathe as slowly as you can, then I think adrenaline cannot work if you have fewer than 10 breaths a minute. It's somewhere like that, something like that. I'm not sure on the exact fact, but if you're really like stressed, slowing your breathing will make your body respond better. Your cortisol levels and shit will go down. But yeah, belly breathing has like, it relaxes your shoulders. It does so many things. There's actually a book on it. Right?
So I have one last question for you. Press. So your business, the title for your business, Prosperity
and Possibilities.
Yes. How did you come up with that?
Download. Full moon. I don't know if it was a full moon or a new moon, but like I said before we got on the call, and I apologize for being late. I got to sleep at 3:30 this morning. It's a full moon, and I had all kinds of epiphanies going through my head last night, and I know there's a whole bunch of shifts that I'm making now that I have to deal with today. And that was just one of those things. Like, it came to me at night, and it was just, this is the name. This is what I'm going to do. This is what it's going to look like. And I got up and I spent 4 or 5 hours, like, reserving the name here and there and setting up everything for the podcast and deciding I knew what the logo was going to look like and all of it. Like, it was just.
Don't you love it when it's like everything just bursts in at once and you're like, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sleep ever, but yes.
I keep an iPad, an old iPod beside the bed with notes on it because I don't want to wake my fiance. It's a very small apartment. There's nowhere I can go in it that I wouldn't. He's a light sleeper. He heard a mouse in the kitchen. It woke him up. Right. So, so I will get under the covers and I just type out the notes about everything, because if I don't, I will forget it. Like, you do have to take note of it. But yeah, the reason you're so creative and let it in is because your mind isn't busy. And you can recreate that during the day if you set time aside for it.
It's very true.
Mm.
And it's so important to do that.
Oh my God, yes. But people still think meditation is this crazy woo thing. And I'm like, no,
Oh,
it's just stop focusing on everything else and calm yourself down so that you're only thinking about the one thing that is important to you. And the most important thing is, what's my body trying to tell me? Like, what are the sensations I'm feeling? What's going on? Because I don't even notice when I'm stressed. I won't know until the stress headache's like strong enough that it's like caught my attention. I'm getting better. I do
yeah.
notice it sooner now, but before, oh God, no. There'd be like my head would blow up before I would realize I was even slightly stressed.
Right. Okay. So tell us how people can get a hold of you.
If you search HC Abbott, put the C, Heather C. Abbott, always include the C, or else you get the lady from the Boston Marathon. But hcabbott.ca is my website. It's pretty easy. It stands for Heather Catherine. HC Abbott, ABBOTT.ca.com. You'll get my insurance website. Still me, wrong site. LinkedIn is my favorite way for people to connect with me. I am on Facebook, but all my links are actually on the website. You may have to look for them. You can sign up for my email list there. Become an insider. You don't get a ton of emails. You do not. I do not contribute to email clutter. But if I send you something, it's because if I'm offering anything for free or a good discount, or I know something good going on, that's how you're going to find out. So you do want to be on the list. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. I'm so happy to have you here today. And we are at the end of the show. So I will see you all next time, and have a great day, everyone.